Guys, it's Vlad from Ausgeknipst, and in this quick video tutorial I will show you how to use your Canon AE-1. The same rules will apply to the very similar AE-1 program, the AV1, the AT1, and in part also for the A1, which is a more sophisticated model of the AE-1. In the video I will cover all the knobs and dials on the camera. I will explain which battery you need to power the camera, how to change lenses using the lens mount, how to load film at the back of the camera, how to set the camera and the exposure correctly using the aperture on the lens and the shutter speed dial, how to focus and compose your image, take a photo and rewind and remove the film. So let's start by a quick overview of all the buttons and dials on the camera. On the front you will find the battery compartment with a battery, the lens mount, which is a Canon FD mount. It will take Canon FD and NFD lenses, a aperture step-down lever, a light meter activation button, which basically has the same function as the shutter button half press, and a button to correctly expose if you have harsh light from the front, like if you're shooting into the sun. On top you have a rewind lever, which also functions as an opening mechanism for the film back, battery check button, a flash sync, a hot shoe with sync, active contacts, the shutter button itself, self timer, advance, shutter speed dial with integrated ISO dial. To set the ISO you have to pull this little shutter knob to the top and set the ISO accordingly. Now as I told you all the levers and dials, let's start by changing the battery. The A1 takes a 4LR44 battery, which is still available. It's a 6-volt alkaline battery, but I prefer to use such an adapter that we sell in our shop. That can be used with standard LR45 or AG13 button cells, also SR44 button cells. Those are widely available in every supermarket, and that's why I prefer to use those together with an adapter. You just insert the button cells here and insert the adapter accordingly. The plus side is on top here right now. The camera shows that plus should be on top, and I firmly press the adapter plus batteries inside like this. Be aware that the battery doors on the A1s are broken most of the time. You will still be able to use the camera, but it's a little annoying if the battery door flips open all the time. That's why you can either replace the battery door like we did on our AE1. You can see the battery door is basically the same on the A1 like on the AE1. That's one of our replacement parts. Or you can also, if you have an AE1 program, add a grip, an action grip that will prevent the door from opening. Now let's put on the lens. As I told you, the AE1 takes Canon FD lenses. This is the standard 50mm 1.8 lens, a very good, sharp lens, which will give you great contrast, details and color. Highly recommend this lens, it's a bargain for the price. And there are lots of compatible lenses out there. If you plan to build yourself a setup of lenses, you should start with the 50mm, then with a 28 2.8 of the same Canon FD line, and maybe a 70-210 NFD lens, which is a pretty nice triplet of lenses that will cover most of the shooting situations. To load the film, you have to open the back of the camera by pulling the rewind lever to the top. That's also a good time to check if the light seals of your camera need to be replaced. We already replaced the seals of this camera with our pre-cut self-adhesive foam strips that we also sell in our store. I'll leave the link for those in the description if you're interested. The seals are located here on the hinge, then in this hinge of the back door, top and bottom, and also here, while those are good most of the time. Now let's take just some basic film. This is also a good time to set the ISO while you insert the film. It's a 100 ISO film as it says on the canister. So I'll set the ISO. This is the green ASA dial here. It doubles as a shutter speed dial, and lift it to the top and set it to 100. It's pretty finicky to set because it turns, but when you turn it to 1000 you can twist it to the left easily. Now it's set to ASA or ISO 100. Like the film speed tells basically the camera how sensitive the film is to light. So the exposure metering works correctly. Insert the film like this. Pull the film strip over here. There's a little arrow. And the leader goes in there. Now while holding it with your left hand, you can release the shutter and advance the film 1 or 2 frames to make sure that it finds correctly, because after you've closed the door and start shooting, you won't be able to check if it's inserted correctly. Another good way to check if it's inserted correctly is to advance a couple of frames after loading it and check the rewind lever, which should move after the second advance slightly, like it did here. Now I know that film is being pulled from the sprocket here and unwound. Now let's set the camera. We already set the ISO. Now if we want to shoot, we will have to adjust the exposure by setting the aperture, which I am able to set to auto A green here by pressing this little button and turning it to the left until it clicks in place. Now this means that the camera will choose the aperture suiting the ISO that I already set and the shutter speed that I chose. This is a semi-auto mode. You can also shoot this camera fully manually by setting the aperture. Let's say I set it to 5.6 and the shutter speed to 1/60th of a second. To check the exposure, you have a built-in light meter here. I'll try to show it to you, which is pretty hard. You see there is a little needle indicator, which moves when I half press the shutter. Now, when the aperture on the lens is set to manual, half pressing the shutter will just tell me what aperture I should set manually on the lens. Now it shows me somewhere about f5.6, which I already set. I can also set the aperture to auto, and let's say I set the shutter speed to 1/250th of a second. Now it will recommend me another f-stop accordingly, or now it's not recommending it, now it's actually choosing it automatically somewhere around f1.8, which is the maximum opening of this lens. To focus the lens of the camera, you will have to turn this focusing mechanism. You also have the capability of zone focus here. So let's say if I'm shooting street photography with a stepped down lens to f16, I can set it so that everything from, let's say, 2.5 meters up to infinity will be in focus. Everything between those little 16ths will be in focus right now. Other than that, I also have a split screen in there, which is also hard to show. Basically, you will have, depending on the split screen in the camera, this little dot inside in the middle of the viewfinder, and when you focus, the two split screens, top and bottom, half part of the circle should be aligned. If you focus on a straight line there, the straight line should be straight without interruptions. I think you'll get it if you look through the lens. To take a photo, you just set the aperture, the ISO and the shutter speed as I told you, and press the shutter, advance, press the shutter. You have 24 or 36 frames depending on the film you chose. You also have a little indicator here which will tell you how much film is left on your roll. If you choose to shoot during the night or inside when it's really dark, you can also use a tripod. You have a tripod attachment here. And after you're finished shooting, just press this little rewind unlock button at the bottom of the camera, pull the lever, it has a little arrow here, and unwind the film until you don't feel any resistance anymore coming from the film. Right now I feel that it's not connected to the take-up spool anymore, so I can open up the film bag, remove the film, and send it over to the lab for development. That's it for now. I hope this little instructional video was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment and I will try to answer any questions you have. Other than that, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.